You may have noticed the gap in years in Maxie's movie career from 1941 to 1946. At this time, Maxie was enlisted in World War II.
Here's Maxie looking handsome doing some Balboa in his Navy uniform. Maxie was a World War II field photographer for the Victory at Sea series, taking photos like this. He said some of the photos were staged, but it was still quite a courageous career. Here's a picture of Maxie at the North Pole in 1951. He was covering a story on an icebreaker expedition, or so he thought. Later, he learned that the team was laying radar patterns through Alaska for the military. This picture was taken because Maxie almost missed his 31st birthday. He would have flown over the international date line on his birthday, thus skipping the big day. The Navy decided to celebrate his birthday a day before he flew off for the Far East.
After the war and into the 70s, Maxie made a career for himself in photography. He would go around the local Los Angeles schools and shoot the class photos. See if you can guess who this person is in this particular class photo. In the 80s, Maxie moved to Las Vegas with his second wife, Margaret. There, he was a card dealer in the casinos, and here's some rare footage of Maxie dancing with Margaret that he sent to me.
Here we go. Same tune we had before?
Oh, you've been practicing. Yes.
Don't tell me. Oh, they've been practicing like crazy. No, you wouldn't believe them. We don't. We don't have a floor.
That's
You know what they do? They put ice cubes in the floor. That's what they do.
That is fantastic.
You have seen it. Boy, I hope you get a picture of the smile on Maxie's face.
I was just going to say that.
The hell of a speak. Hit his face. How about that?
That I was so nervous.
June of 1984 was a very pivotal point for Balboa. It's at this time that Jonathan and Sylvia met Maxie Dorf in a very serendipitous situation.
Anyway, so when Dean died, we're at the funeral in Forest Lawn, and they're calling off the pallbearers because we're going to be leaving the chapel place where we had done the service, and we were going to the mausoleum. And so they went off the pallbearers, and the last one was Maxie Dorf, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he's here! Oh my God, he's here! I mean, I was sad.
She's going, oh boy, and people around her are like, ooh.
I don't think it was quite that obvious, really. And when I got the nerve to go up to him and say, excuse me, I know that this is not the correct time or place, but you, we've been looking for you. And Dean really said we should work with you, and would, is that possible? He gave me this look like, what, are you crazy?
This was at the funeral.
At the funeral, yeah. And I knew it was an inopportune time, but I'd been looking for him.
Inappropriate.
And couldn't find him anyplace, and I thought, well, if he leaves, then I'm screwed, kind of.
Yeah.
I need to find him. So the look on his face was pretty much trying to discern whether I was a stalker, whether I was smoking crack, kind of what was going on. That was pretty funny.
Jonathan and Sylvia then started taking lessons from Maxie at Dean Collins' house on the floor, the dance floor, that Willie Desitoff built.
Okay, I'm Willie Desitoff, and a dancer of close to 70 years now, considering the fact that I started quite young. And we're here to kind of talk about my relationship with Maxie Dorf.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, I always made the statement. I said I knew Maxie before I really ever knew him, because it came to me only by accident I was just coming into dancing.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, who's a couple of years older than I am, he went to his dance where he spotted Maxie Dorf, and he was so impressed with Maxie that when he came home, he woke me up, and I was sound asleep, and he woke me up and said, "Willie, I saw this guy dancing, and boy, he was so good." And he said, his name was Maxie Dorf.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was my first contact with the name and the person.
Mm-hmm.
But Maxie had a style of dancing that nobody else could emulate. He was so smooth in what he did. And I said, when you think about it, unless you see certain things in person, they can't impress you. But he had footwork that wouldn't end.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, I was always very happy to have him as a friend.
So let's see what others had to say about Maxie and his life.
I don't know how the right word for this is. This isn't the right word, but he was just a little bit vinegary.
That's a good word.
You know, he, I don't know how to describe it. I would use that word.
Just,
Okay.
he had a really interesting life, and I enjoyed listening to his stories, and I'm sure he enjoyed telling them. But he was also, he could be ornery, as Jonathan said, and when I saw him with his wife, who near the end of her life was obviously ill, he was very gentle and extremely protective of her. And, you know, so he had a real protective side, but he could also have a really fun body side to him too.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just a very interesting mix of a lot of seemingly different aspects that you wouldn't really usually see in one person. But he'd be warm and fuzzy, and then pretty body and.
He gave me some quotes on life, and I could never figure out, and I wrote them down, and I still remember, and he said, life is degenerative in some ways, and I could never figure that out. I couldn't figure out what that really meant, but I think it has nothing to do with dance, but a lot to do with life.
Because
No, he was living in Vegas.
Okay, because I know he moved out to California, and he was married, and he moved with his wife to Vegas because she was passing away of cancer, and that really affected him. And so that might have been the same time frame when you talked to him, and he said that, you know, how that, you know, he saw his wife pass away, and so he was probably pretty negative at that time. So that makes sense, but that's interesting. Yeah.
I think it's just life experiences, but overall it's been always a great experience.
As far as a person, he most like most people of his generation, he's just very polite, very sweet.
Yes.
He was straightforward too, and he's, again, like most old timers, they don't take crap from me.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just a great, really sweet old guy.
Okay.
Max as a dancer tends to be like a lot of the old timers, kind of arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
However, Maxie as a person was almost exactly the opposite. It seems like the minute he got off the floor, stopped talking about dancing, he was a very, at times private, and really you had to have a sense of commonality with him, and then he would open up, and he'd want to talk about all of his life, his desires, his hopes, his family, his business as a gambler, a professional gambler, and how it goes back, you know, through his family to, I believe, his grandfather was a professional gambler as well, and his whole history. It wasn't until he started talking about dancing that his chest would puff up, and he'd be like, "Look, this is my house, you know,
Right.
and I'll answer as I please." Everything else, he was a very sweet guy.
Being able to hang out with Maxie was like sitting and talking with your grandfather. When we brought him out to Santa Barbara, and we both stayed in the studio that Jonathan and Sylvia had. We talked a lot that evening, shared a lot of stories, and he was really cool. He was bittersweet. He was a sweet old guy, but he was like crabby and yelling about things and stuff that we did teaching wise, and he was arrogant too. He was really proud of his dance and what he did with it. So he had a little bit of arrogance in there. So it was kind of cute to talk to him about all of those things. Maxie was never afraid to remind you that he was one of the best.
She does the work. He does the turning. Oh, looking good out there. You got your own little style. That's nice. Swing or bounce? Both. I'm talking about the swing. Swing? Individual. I do it different from anybody? How could that be? I don't know. Just lucky. She said street look. Yeah. Is it a street look? Yeah. I need a stroke. I'm glad. Thank you. I'll dance again tonight. I wasn't going to dance.
Why do you want to see it?
Because it's just so smooth.
Because I'm doing it?
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Well, a little bit of pressure.
65 years and you were asking me.